everyone, and welcome to Armagh Observatory and Planetarium's Storytime. And this evening we're going to be reading the wonderful story of Counting on Katherine, which is about how Katherine Johnson put astronauts on the moon. And it's written by Helaine Becker and it's illustrated by Dow Phumiruk. So let's find out all about Katherine Johnson. Katherine loved to count. She counted the steps to the road, the steps up to church, the number of dishes and spoons she washed in the bright white sink. The only thing she didn't count were the stars in the sky. Only a fool, she thought, would try that. Even so, the stars sparked her imagination. What was out there? Katherine yearned to know as much as she could about numbers, about the universe, about everything. Katherine's boundless curiosity turned her into a star student. She was so bright she skipped 3 whole school years. She catapulted right past her brother. He wasn't too happy about that. By the time she turned 10, Katherine was ready for high school. But back then, America was legally segregated by race. Her town's high school didn't admit black students of any age. Katherine burned with fury. She wanted more than anything to keep learning. There was still so much to know. Count on me, Katherine's father told her. By working night and day, he earned enough money to move the family to a town with a black high school. Katherine loved high school. She was good at every subject, but maths was still her favourite. She dreamed of becoming a research mathematician, making discoveries about the number patterns that are the foundation of our universe. In those days, though, there were no jobs as research mathematicians for women. Professions most available to them were teaching and nursing. So Katherine became a primary school teacher. She liked her job and she loved her students, but she never stopped dreaming about exploring numbers. In the 1950s, the US government's National Advisory Committee on Aeronautics, or NACA, hired thousands of new employees. It even started hiring black women as mathematicians. Katherine heard about the mathematician jobs. Her heart raced with excitement. Perhaps her dream could come true after all. But when she applied for one of the positions, she was told that they were already filled. Katherine had to wait a whole year until new spots opened up. Her patience paid off. She got the job. A few years later, the Soviet Union sent a rocket ship into space, launching a space race with the United States. NACA was rolled into a new space agency, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA. Katherine now found herself at the heart of America's space program. She worked as a computer. Electronic computers were not widely used yet, calculating long series of numbers. All the computers were women. They were given the tasks that men thought were boring and unimportant. That didn't bother Katherine. She knew that without her contributions, a spaceship couldn't reach its destination, nor safely return to Earth. And here's why. Sending a rocket ship into space is like throwing a ball into the air. At first, the force of the throw sends the ball up, up, up. But as the energy runs out, the ball's path curves back towards the ground. Where it lands depends on what angle it was thrown and how high and how fast it flew. Because maths is a kind of language, Katherine could ask those questions. How high would the rocket ship go, and how fast would it travel? Using numbers. And numbers would provide the all-important answer. Where would it land? To find out, Katherine plotted the numbers she calculated on a graph. When she joined the points together, they formed a curved line. At one end of that line was Earth at the time the rocket ship launched. At the other end was where Earth would be when the ship landed. Katherine's reputation for accuracy and strong leadership skills, she was known for asking lots of questions, got her promoted to Project Mercury, a new program designed to send the first American astronauts into space. Mercury's missions were going to be dangerous, so dangerous that even the project's star astronaut, John Glenn, refused to fly unless Katherine okayed the numbers. Glenn's spacecraft, Friendship 7, orbited Earth 3 times and returned home safely. Glenn became a national hero. Katherine was promoted again. Now she was asked to calculate the flight paths for Project Apollo, the first flights to the moon. Count on me, she said. On July 20th, 1969, the Apollo 11 astronauts walked on the moon. Their feat was celebrated around the world. More triumphs followed. Apollo 12 rocketed to the moon in November 1969. Apollo 13 launched on April 11, 1970. But on the third day of Apollo 13's flight, the worst thing happened. An explosion in space. Could the crippled spaceship make it to the moon? And if it didn't, would it be able to get back home to Earth? The 3 astronauts on board were in grave peril. Commander Jim Lovell told Mission Control, "Houston, we've had a problem." Back on Earth, Katherine Johnson got a phone call. Her flight path calculations would have to be done all over again, and perfectly. It would be the toughest challenge of her life. Katherine told Mission Control, "You can count on me." She rolled up her sleeves, took a deep breath, and began doing the maths. She worked hard and fast. A few hours later, Katherine's calculations were finished. The flight path to return home would take the ship around the far side of the moon. From there, the moon's gravity would act like a slingshot to zing the ship back to Earth. To get home, the crew of Apollo 13 would have to follow Katherine's course exactly by burning off fuel at precise intervals. If the astronauts made a mistake, their ship would drift through space forever. Katherine waited anxiously to hear the astronauts' report. Finally, it cracked over the loudspeakers. "We've got it!" Apollo 13 was back on track. Katherine Johnson had done it. She brought Apollo 13 home. She was no longer the kid who dreamed of what lay beyond the stars. She was now a star herself. What an inspirational story of Katherine Johnson, and probably a story you might not have heard when hearing about the Apollo missions. So I hope you've enjoyed the story, and if you did, stick around, because straight after this we're going to interview the author of the book, Helaine Becker, find out about her inspirations and other books that she has written as well. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now. Hi everyone, welcome to AOP Storytime, and after the story today we are able to talk to the author of Counting on Catherine, Helaine Becker, who's here with us today all the way from Toronto, Canada. So thanks so much for joining us, Helaine, and we have a few questions for you. We'd like to know about yourself and the book. So the first question is, what inspires you to write Counting on Catherine?
Well, I think the first thing that really got me going was rage. Rage, good feminist rage. I was working on a book called Everything Space with my son. He was my research assistant, and we had to do a page that was like space pioneers. And I said to him, don't give me only dead white guys, right? That's not going to fly. Pardon the pun. And he was like, yeah, I know what you want, Mom, because he knew since the time he was, this big, that Mom was a feminist, because I'd like whisper into his crib when he was a baby, and I'd go like, girls are smarter than boys. Girls can do anything. Boys, not so much, right? That's what I used to say. So, and they were like, yes, Mom, we'll just have the, bread and water. We get it. We're just the serving class. Humor was big in our house. So anyway, he sent me an email and he said, oh, Mom, you are going to love this person that I found. And it was Katherine Johnson. And at that time, it was before the movie Hidden Figures had come out. There was almost nothing about Katherine Johnson on the web anywhere, nothing. And when I started digging deeply and looking, I got mad, right? I got mad, and I got madder, and I got even madder still, because I thought, why don't we know this story? Why is this amazing person's story not being told? And there was only one reason, as far as I can tell, is that the people who were writing the stories, telling the stories, publishing the stories, didn't think that a woman, especially a minorities woman, could do anything useful, right? That's what they will just give you and then if you do, well, that kind of conflicts with our worldview, so we just won't tell you. And this has been the way it's been through all of written history. That people who tell the stories about the people they want to tell, not the rest of us. So we grew up as girls thinking, oh, well, nobody ever did these things. Not true. They had a harder time, but they did them, and they did them well, and then we never heard about them. So it's like, you see, it goes around. So I thought, I'm going to write this story. So not easy to find Katherine Johnson at that time. She was 96. And 96-year-olds don't often have, like web pages or, TikTok. They don't have that. So it's like, how do you find her? And I had to do some sleuthing, deep in the internet with phone books and triangulation and family trees, and figure out a snail mail address. So I sent her a letter by snail mail telling her who I was. And about a month later, I got a letter back from her daughter by snail mail saying, Mom would be very pleased with you to do this book for two reasons. One, first of all, we checked you out and we made sure you're okay. And we have some of your books, my grandson has them on his shelf, so we know you're legit. Yeah. And two, she taught grade 5. And for her, the idea of a book being for children just tickled her totally. That was like the pinnacle as far as she was concerned. So she gave me her blessing.
Wow. Fantastic. Yeah, and we're so great that you wrote the book as well, because so many more people know the story of Catherine. And yeah, fantastic. And do you have a favorite part of the book for any reason?
My favorite part is the art. So Dow Phumiruk did the art. She is equally amazing. She's a pediatrician. Oh. And she started doing art as a grown-up. I mean, she's got like teenage kids, and she said, I want to do an art. And this was her second book. Like, oh my God. So I love the art. I love the way, she captured, the beautiful expressions on the little, like this page. How could you not love that page? There's a little tiny young Catherine in there looking up at the stars. It's just so beautiful. And she did a really good job of explaining the math as well visually, which is really important. Because if you just say, well, she did math, what does that mean? You want to understand what she did. Otherwise, it's not interesting, and you don't connect it to the math you're doing at school.
Fantastic. Yeah, it really helps just gel the story all together.
Yeah. Yes, and this I think is the most important page in the book. Wait, we'll flip, 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 flip. This one here. Because, you know, it makes it very clear how it's something that you do every day, you know, tossing a ball perhaps, that you can turn it into mathematical equations. And that's what she used to figure out how to send a rocket ship to the moon. You know, when you look at that ball in your hand, look, you're doing math, right? It's amazing.
Yeah. And you said earlier that you wrote a letter to Katherine and her family, and sadly Katherine passed earlier this year, but did you ever get to meet her? Or do you know whether she was able to read the book or listen to the book?
Yes and no. So I did speak to her. Her family did not want me to go and meet with her without one of them being there, which made perfect sense to me because, you know, I could have been a grifter or something. And everyone lived far apart. And just at the time when we were organizing a get together, one of the daughters had a family crisis. So we never got to meet in person, but I did speak to Mrs. Johnson on the phone and interviewed her directly. And I did meet her daughters and her grandchildren and other people in person at an event in Washington, D.C., where she was being given a lifelong award. So I didn't meet her in person, but I did speak to her. I know that, you know, she was happy about the book. When the book came out, Dow and I both inscribed the books, and I inscribed them and I sent them to Dow, and then Dow inscribed them, and we sent copies to each of her family members and to her, so we know that she had it and enjoyed it and got to see it. That was really meaningful. I kept saying to the publishers, hurry up, she's old.
Yeah. That's great, and I'm sure her family really appreciated having a copy as well, and the story been written down, and worldwide as well. You know, we've got it over here, and it's gone all over the world, so that's brilliant. And you have lots of stories, particularly to do with science, with space. Do you have I think you have a particular interest in those subjects, but was that sparked from an early age? How did you get into writing stories about space and about science and maths?
So I've always been interested in science, although I was not a science student per se. I can't measure. You know, I'm left-handed, and I realize that's why I can't measure, because everything is designed to be, you know, if you're holding a cup of liquid and it's got measuring, it's designed to be held in your left hand, you know, like the way the numbers are, or it's all backwards. So I was terrible at doing science, and I'm always like, come on, what happens? Like, I'm very impatient. But I'm a very curious person. I've always been. I'm interested in everything, and I figure even if I'm not interested in it at the beginning, when I start looking into it, like, you know, how does a car motor work? Like, I don't care. But then when you get into it, you're like, wow, that's totally cool. Who knew that? So curious, I'm interested in everything. And I write sort of across the board. I write all kinds of things because I'm interested in everything. So today it may be Katherine's story that caught my attention, you know, or it could be, let's see, prehistoric insects that were huge.
Yeah.
Wow. Or a book about robots, the kinds of robots that are being made today to do different tasks. I saw that article about the robots in The Economist while I was in the washroom, because that's where I like to read. And it's a book. Actually, it's cute. So did that answer the question?
Yeah,
I got so distracted by all the banging. I'm waiting for the workmen to start with the jackhammers now.
Yeah. But it's also, yeah, if you're interested in something, just find out more about it and let other people know. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And have you got anything in the pipeline, anything coming out in the next few months?
But of course. So I'm not sure where things are on your side of the pond. This came out this spring in North America. I'm not sure if it's available, but it's called Pirate Queen. And this is also another rage story about the most powerful pirate that ever lived. Her name is Zheng Yisao, which actually isn't a name. It's just Mrs. Sao, you know, Mrs. Zheng actually. And but she was the most powerful pirate that ever lived, and she had 70,000 pirates under her command. Right? 70,000 pirates. How come we don't know her story? Like when you were a kid and you wanted to be a pirate, and everyone's like, well, girls can be pirates. You can do it. Wrong, wrong. So that one is out now, but not out. So that's coming soon to you. I don't know, can you see them up there? Yes. Whoa. This will be out in the next month. Emmy Nutter, the most important mathematician you never heard of. Another story, another rage story. And she was literally as important as Einstein.
Wow.
And she was a contemporary, and when his theory of relativity had a mathematical hole in it, they couldn't figure it out. Nobody could figure it out. They called Emmy, and she fixed it. She figured out what was wrong with the formulas, you know, the math, so that he could become famous. She should have won the Nobel Prize for the theory of relativity along with him, but, you know, And then while she was working on the theory of relativity, you know, figuring that out, she had another insight, and she developed what's called the Nurture Theorem, which completely explains the foundations of the universe, the structure of the universe, that there's an underlying connection of symmetry and correspondences between various things, and changed fundamentally the way people view the universe, the same way that the theory of relativity did. Do you know her?
No, not until I...
Why not? Why? Like, I mean, it's just flabbergasting. So that's coming out shortly. And then this is on your side of the pond, something completely different. It's called Gothica, and it's a middle grade novel, and it's a retelling of the Golem legend set in the future. So the Golem legend is this man of clay that was supposedly raised in the 16th century to help the Jews in Prague. So this is set in the future, and it's a story of hope, and it's quite exciting. So
Fantastic. So
there's graphic elements in it. And then next year, also on your side of the pond, is a book called Fish and Chips, which is a fanciful look at the origin of the very, very first fish and chips that were ever made together.
Oh, I'd be interested to hear that story. Yeah, brilliant. Well, Helaine, it's been fantastic to speak to you, and thanks for all the work you do in getting those names out there and sharing your knowledge as well. So thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
And thank you for doing this as well. It's lovely to be brought together, you know, with people who share similar interests, especially during these difficult times. There are kids watching this. You know, the one good thing about the isolation we have is that it gives you freedom to really learn about something that you care about and dig into something, right? You have all this time and you're going, oh, I'm so bored. Well, figure out what you care about and to do a deep dive. That's a luxury that we have now. So you can do that and turn this difficult times into positive times.
Fantastic. Thanks, Helaine. Lovely to talk to you.
Ciao. Thanks.